The world-saving wedge.
Conservation transport works by reducing miles traveled by passengers and/or large vehicles. This would come from cutting miles traveled by all passenger vehicles in half. Conservation transport benefits the economy through increased public transport and is cost-effective.
Efficiency electricity is the increase of a power generation plant's efficiency from 40 to 60%. This is another example of a cheap strategy.
CCS electricity involves 90% of CO2 from fossil fuel power plants being captured, then stored underground. This wedge would be achieved by injecting a volume of CO2 every year equal to the volume of oil extracted. Of the strategies involving CCS, electricity is the cheapest.
In this method, wind displaces coal-based electricity by using an area equal to about 3% of U.S. land area for wind farms. However, land from which wind is harvested can be used for many other purposes, including crops or pasture.
Because we chose wind electricity, we also chose wind hydrogen, which produces hydrogen wind electricity and could power half of the world's cars predicted for 2050 with hydrogen. Combined with transport conservation, this strategy would make a large impact on society.
Because plants take up carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, combustion of biofuels made from plants returns this borrowed carbon to the atmosphere. Thus, burning biofuels for transportation and heating will not raise the atmosphere's net CO2 concentration.
This strategy is beneficial as it is achieved by halting deforestation in 50 years. Land plants and soils that contain large amounts of carbon can be used as natural sinks that would remove tons of carbon from the atmosphere. Forest storage is also a cheap strategy. By practicing carbon management on all the world's agricultural soils, farming techniques could increase carbon retention or storage in soils. Soil storage is a cheap option and could reduce soil carbon content by 1/2 to 1/3.
Taxpayers and consumers would rate our wedge a 3 because although wedges such as conservation transport and wind hydrogen will make transportation and energy more efficient and available, these projects will require more funds for public works as well as an abundance of space to utilize. Overall, however, our complete wedge will benefit consumers who depend on electricity. Energy companies would rate our wedge a 5 as methods such as wind electricity, wind hydrogen, and CCS electricity would provide them a means of business. Environmental groups would rate our wedge a 4 because while our methods are meant to reduce carbon emissions, hydrogen poses some safety and environmental risks. Manufacturers would rate our wedge a 4 because methods such as wind electricity would require 1 million large windmills to be produced, thus creating business. Industrialized governments would rate our wedge a 3. It would reduce carbon emissions, make transport more efficient, and boost manufacturing. However, space becomes an issue. The not in my backyard defense is a large argument. A developing country would rate our wedge a 2. Although our methods are largely agriculturally based, which is suitable in developing areas, they are not readily available in the restricted space of some of these regions.